Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we are currently on our way over to the module. We landed about 18 kilometers away, and that's really not ideal. I want to switch this to SAS only and this to SAS only, and we want the SAS to be trying to hold us in the up direction for right now. There we go. And we're just going to accelerate as much as we can through here, because we need to build up some speed to crest these hills, right? And that's absolutely fine. I want to take a look at our electric charge, and oddly, one of my screens just went blank. That was weird. It seems to be back now. Okay. Very odd. Very odd indeed. Also, look at this. We are net positive on our electricity, even while driving our engines. I like it. Let's go ahead and extend this antenna. Okay, and what we want to do now is we want to crest this hill, and I kind of want to be heading, like, directly at our target, out over this way. We've currently traveled almost a full kilometer, and we're making decent time, but we can see we're losing speed as we go up this hill, although we're not losing speed very quickly. So that's definitely interesting. Although I am a little concerned about the wheels braking when going at this speed, but I also feel like we have to go at this speed, which is a little bit awkward. I also don't like how high our center of gravity is on this, so that could potentially give us a problem. But I am surprised that our electric charge is positive. That's a very good thing. Are we farming right now? I don't think we are. Yeah, we're not farming, and that's why. Okay. Sounds good. So, let's just continue through here. I'm going to enter into a coast period now that we're going downhill. I don't want to accelerate more than gravity will give us at this point, because I am concerned about breaking wheels, and random physics bugs can occur that just send you flying when you're rolling like this. And tipping this thing would be pretty catastrophic. I don't think we can tip it back with Kerbals. I'd be surprised if we could. We might have to try at some point. So we're currently traveling at like 16 meters per second, and this is a dangerous speed for our wheels. Whew, okay. That could have been bad. And as you can see, we're losing speed at this point, and I'm turning on the engines again because we want to kick in whatever we can to get up this hill. We're now decelerating, and that's a good thing overall. We want to be going a little slower than this. I would prefer to be sitting at somewhere around 5 meters per second would be kind of ideal in terms of like rover speed. The hill's starting to flatten out here a little bit, but we're still losing speed at a pretty quick clip. So we might have to cut out over... Ooh. Okay, SAS saving our skin there. We might have to cut out a little bit out over this direction in order to approach the hill at a slightly shallower angle. We're still losing speed at this time. Okay, now we're gaining speed. So, lesson learned, don't turn this thing too sharp. That's for sure. Also, note how we are currently losing electric charge. Is that affected by the cloud cover? It might just be our angle. Either way, it's reasonably fine. So, I'm kind of making for this slightly lower point out over here. That's the goal, anyway. And then once we're up here, we'll pivot and head down this direction, because I'm just a little concerned. I think that this is a reasonable speed to be going at. I think we're pretty unlikely to tip over at this speed, and I think that we're pretty unlikely to break our wheels at this speed. So that's good. We've already had 2 close calls, though, so we want to be a little bit more careful here. We've still got about 14 kilometers to travel to get to the... Let's see, this is the sky crane here, and then I think this up here is the actual module. So we've got, you know, somewhere around 14.5 kilometers to go here, and we're traveling at 7.1 meters per second. I do not dare physics warp this at this time. So we're trying to cruise up this hill, and our speed is actually remaining okay. It's not great. That's for sure. But we're at about 6 meters per second right now. And we're almost to the low point between these 2 hills. And we just want to kind of cruise right through here. Or maybe right here. Something like that. Wait, we're at 6.1 meters per second. 6.2. So far, so good. 6.3. We are accelerating at this moment. So I'm going to... Ooh, that's very sensitive. I'm going to gently turn us over here. I'm going to turn off the steering on these wheels. It feels way too powerful as of right now. Okay, so now we're only steering on 2 wheels. And we're going to head up over here. I'm going to call this like a bit of a checkpoint. I'm going to autosave here. Actually, we need to push our way up to the top of the hill. We can't quick save while we're moving over the surface, so we need to push up to the top of the hill and then stop. And then we can put in a checkpoint and say, if we need to revert, we revert back to that checkpoint, because there's so many things that can go wrong while doing this, right? You can have a random physics bug that causes your wheels to explode. You can just hit a bump in the terrain that is not visually present that just tips you over, and there's not too much you can do about it. So, yeah, once we get to the top of this hill, I'm going to put in a checkpoint there. And that's where we'll revert to if something is catastrophically wrong that is not my fault. If it's my fault, I'll own it. And I suppose we could take this whole thing apart and rebuild it in the correct orientation with our engineer, couldn't we? It'd be kind of silly. We could do that. So the question is, when do we get to the peak of this hill? I'm going to turn us over a little bit more towards our destination point. And we're still cruising along relatively slowly here. But the peak of this hill has to be right up here, right? We're losing speed now. That looks good. I want to be losing speed for the moment. The question is, how much more hill is there between us and our destination? And I'm guessing there's at least one, possibly more. Once we get to our save point, we can recharge our electric charge as well. This is definitely flattening out here. Okay. Yes, absolutely flattening out. And we can see this is actually not terribly hilly up over this way. This is a long journey. There's no doubt about it. But I think once we get to about here, I'm going to call that good as far as the save point goes. And then we'll do another one sometime, like, maybe near the top of this hill. But let's turn on our brakes. Bring this to a halt. It's very slow to bring to a halt, of course, but there we go. Slowly coming to a halt. Okay. Let's warp forward a little bit here in order to fill up our electricity. Is the sun going up or down? Up. That's good. In fact, we should have known that because of where we came in the orbit. So that's fine. I'm going to make a quick save here. And if we have a physics bug, we'll revert back to this point. If it's my fault, we'll deal with it. But if it's the physics bug, we'll definitely revert it back to there. I just don't want to have to redo this from, like, the absolute beginning in case of physics bugs. So we'll move on forward here, build up some speed. with the idea being that we just want to shoot up to the top of this hill. We're definitely going to build up some speed as we go down this, but this isn't terribly steep. Okay, I'm going to stop running the motor at this point. We could run the motor in reverse to try to slow ourselves back down. That is an option. And keep in mind, our SAS is trying to hold us in an upright direction at this point. So that looks good. I'm watching for when we start to decelerate. As long as we're accelerating, I'm okay with it. But once we start decelerating, we are absolutely going to need to start hitting the motor. So this is allowing our electric charge to regenerate a little bit. 14.7, 8, 9, 15. Still accelerating. That's going to change very shortly. Holding at 15.2. Decelerating. Kicking in the engines. But we're about to crest this portion of this hill. Stopping the motor at this point, and I'm just looking at our current angling and thinking I'd like to be going slightly more this way. So a slight course correction there. We're cruising along at 15.2. We've not had any major issues with physics here, which is good. Okay, we're accelerating slightly right now. 15.3. 15.5. I'm not doing anything with the motor at this time. We're just coasting. We're up to 16. And we're going to be coasting, we're going to be accelerating for a little bit as we go down this hill. 17. I'm worried about the wheels when we start to go uphill. It's a terrain resolution thing. It just isn't as gradual as we'd like. 19 meters per second right now. Okay, we're going uphill, and we're slowing down. We're still going quite fast at this time. I'm not kicking in the motor. We're not losing speed all that quickly. Well, we're still cruising along here. We've got about 10 kilometers to go. This was a point that I was going to consider a save point, but I don't want to lose this momentum that we've built. We're traveling along pretty rapidly right now, that's for sure. But so far, so good. Okay, now we're starting to go uphill. And we're decelerating. We're still going quite fast. I'm not kicking in the motor. I am going to turn us a little bit towards the target. Very gently. 18 meters per second. This is still faster than I'm comfortable with. I feel like these wheels are probably going to go boom. But they haven't yet, so we'll keep pushing our luck. We're about 9 kilometers away right now. And we're still moving quite quickly. We're over the top of this hill. And we're starting to go down a relatively steep embankment, but then that's going to immediately transition into a relatively steep increase in the elevation. So I'm a little concerned, to be sure, at this moment. What's going to happen when we hit this terrain right up over here? Ooh. Okay, that's what I was worried about. So, now the question is, can we get this back up right? That I'm not going to count as a physics bug, for the record. That's exactly what I was worried about, though, and the reason why that happens is because when the terrain changes, if we can zoom in, like, actually, you can see it a bit right here. Where can we... So, when the terrain changes, it changes sharply, right? And this was just too much of an elevation change. So let's get Bill out. And let's see if he is capable of flipping this up. I would be shocked if he can do this. Yeah, no. So that's not going to be a thing. How do we want to handle this? Well, one thing we might be able to do is manipulate the extension on these legs. Right? That's a theoretical option. Or we could just call that a physics bug and revert back to the save, but that save was a while ago. What I'd really want to do is I'd want to find a way... Oh, and look at that. There was right here. This was a chunk change. Right here. I bet you that's what happened. Did you see that when we swapped here? That seam? That's a chunk change. That is a physics bug. It's absolutely a physics bug then. So we're going to have to pull this back, and we'll take that back to the persistent, and we'll get back to about this point, and I will see you guys there. Okay, so here we are in about the same position as we were before we hit that physics chunk issue, which I think that chunk is like right over here or something. We were very close to, I think, this same rock. So that is absolutely wonderful that we are now back on track and cruising our way through. And the reason why I'm classifying that as a physics bug is because when we hit the chunk threshold, the collider just isn't quite aligned. And we were moving quite quickly, but that shouldn't have still caused quite that tip, right? But I did realize, you'll notice I have the cheats menu open here. I did realize that I'd accidentally left on unbreakable joints and no crash damage. So when that tip over happened, technically we probably should have lost these two solar panels. I think it was these two. It was two of these solar panels that technically should have happened. But also, that tip over should never have happened. So we're just gonna call it a wash, I think, and continue on our way. Oh, I forgot to make a save point here. Let's go ahead and turn on the brakes action group. We're basically at the crest of this hill. I was intending to make a save point back here, and I did not do that. So we're going to need to do this. Okay, that's now our save point, and hopefully we don't hit any additional physics bugs on the way over. So let's start accelerating a bit. I just want to get us to the downhill point. And once we are a bit downhill here, we should start accelerating naturally, and I'm just going to let that happen. So we're about 8 kilometers away from this thing at this point. We've traveled a little over halfway. And I'm now just letting this sit. So that looks good. That also means that we might have lost wheels at some of those velocities, now that I think about it. Which means that I'm concerned about speed. We need to take this at a bit slower of a speed. So that means that we need to just keep an eye on this. Keep it like at or around 10 meters per second, probably. Not any higher than that because, well, maybe we should have unbreakable joints and no crash damage on just for the sake of time to allow us to go a little faster here. This isn't particularly interesting. So we could do that just to allow us to go a little faster and just realize if we tip over and it's my fault, like I'm turning or something like that, if we tip over and it's my fault that we tip over, then we may have to just designate some of these solar panels as destroyed. And that's fine. We can do that. We can furl them, we can remove them and just discard them, whatever. But like this, we can at least continue onward at a higher rate of speed and get this traversal done a little bit faster. And I think that's probably a happy medium between doing this like as a purist no cheats way of doing it and just making it a little bit more interesting, right? That also actually increases the risk of tipping it over and it being my fault, to be clear. Going faster is riskier in that regard. So there's that. So at this point, we are cruising right along. I want to have open our electric charge here. World first milestone. Oh, walking on the surface of Duna. Sure, we did technically do that. So that seems fine. And we're going to cruise on through here. I think these wheels probably would explode right there when we started to go uphill if I didn't have unbreakable joints and no crash damage on at this speed. But this speed will allow us to tackle these hills more head-on, and it will also allow us to just get there faster. I'd like to get there, hopefully, by the end of this episode. That would be nice. I don't want to spend multiple episodes doing this. To be honest, if we're not there by the end of this episode, I'll probably just do the rest off camera. But we have a few minutes, and let's continue to head through here for now. Turning uphill like this is kind of risky, I think, isn't it? Yeah, it's definitely a little risky. Ooh, that's a physics bug there. Okay. That was a physics bug. That was not me turning at that time. The reason that that happened was because of the variation in altitude here. So if we look at how rough this terrain is right here, I can't clip the camera into the ground here, unfortunately. Oh, here I can. So if we look at how rough this terrain is, you can see, if we can zoom in a little more right over here, you can see it right here, maybe. Maybe you can see it. There's a pretty sharp change in the lay of the land right there. I wish I could clip the camera into the ground a little bit more conveniently, but we're going to have to pull this back, and that is fine. I think I'm just going to cut out the rest of this journey, to be honest, because I don't think this is particularly interesting. We'll be at the facility once we get there. We'll just have a few of these bumps along the way, and it's not a big deal. See you guys in just a moment. Okay, so here we are, almost to our destination. There were definitely a few bumps along the way. I ran into several more of those very, very sharp height transitions that tipped us over at the speeds we were going. I was trying to cruise at like 20 meters per second to save time, but of course, you know, that's not necessarily the safest thing to do. But in the end, we got here, mostly. We're about 400 meters away at this point. But yeah, the reason why we run into problems like that isn't because of the way that physics works. It's because of the way that the terrain works. It's just the terrain isn't high enough resolution for the physics simulation we're asking of it. And that's fine. This is why I created the save point system, which I did utilize. There are several save points along that journey, but here we are. And the idea here is that this guy is going to get docked in up over, I think it was this side was the plan. Yeah, that was the plan. So we're going to have to approach this from a slightly different angle, for sure. How are we doing on electric charge? It's fine. Ish. Okay. So that was a bit laggy. Okay. Now, keep in mind, I do have unbreakable joints and no crash damage on right now, which was good, because when we loaded this in, there is a theoretical possibility that it just explodes. We've experienced it, but I think it was only during that docking event. So, we're going to need to set this as our target, if I can actually click on it. One of these days. It's very difficult when it's at this, like, oblique angle. No doubt about that. And there we go. Let's bring this to a halt. Much better angle. Okay, I'm going to feather this around. We don't want to turn too sharp. And yes, we are being a little awkward here. Okay, we brought it to a halt, and now we want to continue our turn. And we're going to want to control from here. So now the question becomes, okay, our controls are inverted. So that's fine. We can now move forward this way. So our forward-backward controls are currently normal, and our turn controls are inverted. So we're just going to very slowly turn here. We're going to want to head a little bit this way before we get this docked. Okay. Still, I want to turn a little bit more here. Not quite all of the way yet, though. Okay, let's stop here. And let's just get lined up a little bit over here. And then start to turn out over this direction. Have to be careful with those turns, of course. Our center of gravity is high. Okay. So we're heading in basically right at the target, but not quite. I'm still heading a little bit this way. Now I want to head basically right at the target, and I'm turning on brakes. We want to slow this right on down. I'm decelerating with the motor as well. Okay. We've now come to a halt, and we need to line up our verticality here. So if I remember correctly, these were at, I think, like 0.4? Something like that. So we're just bringing this guy up. That's 0.34 right now. Actually, I think it's like 0.3. We'll check here in a moment if this doesn't work out. So I'm bringing up this one next. So that's at 0.3. We're just being kind of cautious with this. Reaction wheel is holding us upright. Okay, 0.3 and 0.3. There we go. That should be okay. So now let's head on in a bit. Steering is reversed. Steering is reversed. Okay, I'm deliberately correcting out over this way. Okay. So at this juncture, we can see we're sitting slightly too low. Putting it at 0.35. And 0.35. This is going to go up to 0.35 and 0.35. We might need to go a little higher than this. And we need to go maybe slightly this way as well. Let's take this up to 0.4. And I want to do this one next. 0.4. 0.4. Keep in mind some of this... Oh, that just docked. Okay. Keep in mind some of that is based on the actual mass of the vehicle. Okay, so there we go. We've got this docked up. There's our life support module. And now we have control here. So what I want to do is I want to extend out this solar array and this solar array. Should be sufficient for now, anyway. But we want to start up our mining operations. First things first, let's see if we can deploy our water drill and if there's any water to be had here. It's claiming nothing to harvest, and that might remain the case. So for now, we've got this metal ore drill here and here. And we've got these inline drills as well. So these get metal, or these get ore. These get metal ore. So we can start this. That's getting metal ore. Okay, that looks good. And this inline drill here. Good, good, and good. So that's all building up. We're going to want to extend out these radiators, of course. There we go. And then I'm going to extend this radiator. We're going to start our ISRU on liquid fuel and oxidizer. There we go. So we're now making fuel. And we can't make too much else, but we can absolutely start making fertilizer. There we go. So now the question is, does that make enough fertilizer for this farm? We'll find out. It does. We need more power generation here. That's for sure. Let's extend this solar panel and this solar panel. Actually, let's extend all of these. And let's see if that's enough power. The main concern now is water. We are not receiving any water from this water drill. We're reading as nothing to harvest. So that's a bit of a problem for sure. We might have to go make some sort of a water vehicle that delivers water back here. Potentially. We've got our water purifier, and that can be running. Our water is increasing at this moment. We do have a little bit of wastewater. So hopefully that'll be okay, but yeah, we can't run air filters. That's understood. And we have this carbon extractor that can also be run, but for right now, I don't need to run that. So, a couple of slight problems, for sure. We don't have water, at least in this position. And this atmosphere does not have oxygen. So we can't run air filters either. So that's a pretty significant problem. No doubt about it. The good news is, if we run out of life support here, Jeb and Bill can be rehydrated very easily by just docking up something with proper life support here. It is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we're going to see about tackling... I think the water problem is probably the bigger issue. I think we'll be okay once we get our foundry going, because that'll produce a lot of carbon dioxide, and the carbon dioxide can be split into oxygen at that point. And we may be able to use the fuel that we've got here from our Convertitron. We may be able to use this to split our water, or our liquid fuel and oxidizer, into liquid fuel and oxygen. So that might be a component that we need to bring up on another module. But for now, it is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we're going to see about tackling some of those issues. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Dark Horse, Ethan Feldman, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, Rornaz, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time. Also, I turned off unbreakable joints and no crash damage.